Welcome to OverBoost 12. OverBoost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I'm your host, PMC Trilogy, and with me today is Pa Sama. Pa, how are you?
I'm doing good. I would say I was melting, but we actually had a really good rain yesterday and it got cold, so it's actually really fantastic here. I'm not melting. It is fantastic.
Yeah, no, we're having a typical Northeast U.S. Summer, which is constant thunderstorms. Also a tropical storm, which really spiced things up. But likewise, enjoying the respite from from constant heat.
I just know for previous episodes, that has been the main theme of people saying they're melting or it's too warm, and I'm like, it's actually nice out today.
Yeah,
I'm not the person who doesn't have to say that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have nice things to say in the year of our Lord 2020.
Oh yeah. It's been a year. It's been a year.
Let's go back in time. How does gaming start for you? Is it something from particular friends or family? What would be the foundation?
The foundation was basically a doctor's recommendation. I don't know how it got started, but from what my mom has told me is I had terrible hand and eye coordination. And the doctor recommended, one way to improve her hand and eye coordination is to get her a Nintendo. And then they did, and the rest is history. Video gaming was a part of my life since then.
Do you remember any particular NES games that were childhood favorites?
I remember bits and pieces. I still own a lot of the NES games that we had back in the day. I remember, Mom and I playing Kiko Cube, mostly me, and then when I got stuck, I would go find her, and then she would come down to solve the puzzle. She actually really enjoyed those puzzle games, so we owned quite a bit of puzzle games, and then, of course, the Chip and Dale. I remember Disneyland Adventures being hard, and then playing it later on when I got older, and I was like, this is actually really easy. Pass Pa, I question you, but just a lot of those Disney games growing up.
Do you ever have the sort of the opposite where you wonder how young Pa was able to do this because it seems impossible?
Sometimes, yeah, and I'm just kind of I'll just go with it. Sure, okay, I have no idea how I got past this.
It must have happened.
Yeah, it must have been pure fluke.
So it sounds like you've been, it's been a part of your whole life. Were there any sort of phases? Because this is something I find this a lot with talking to people on this podcast, where it is something that started from their family more often than not, which is great, which is really cool. And going forward, we change a lot as we grow older. Were there any phases where you said actually, you know what, maybe I'm growing out of gaming? Something that I feel like I've heard a lot, despite never really doing myself.
I want to say growing out of more a change of what games I would play. Because when I was young, we'd go into town. We lived 15 minutes out of town. We would rent video games. So whatever game I chose had to be that one game I was stuck with for the weekend. So I had to choose wisely. And a lot of the games I chose were just based on cover and box art. So sometimes I rent something really fun, and then I rent the one game that was an RPG, and I'm like, this is interesting, but really difficult. And then over time, once I got a SNES, over time, I started renting more of the RPG side of things. And then later on, getting more into the JRPG side of things. And only became I want to say university, and that when I really started delving into the JRPGs and then your really obscure games, because that was coming out in the time of companies really trying different things to see if it stuck. And some of the games some of it worked, and some of it was just too quirky for back then.
Yeah, it's one of the favorite parts of going to play. I mean, we're going to be talking about some obscure games. In fact, a game that I never heard of before until I looked at your speedrun.com profile and was stunned is one of the ones that we're going to discuss today, which I'm really excited about, because what you're saying is something I agree with 100%, which is that some of those periods that we grew up with, there was a lot of experimenting going on, especially PS1 era. I feel like is my favorite to go in mind for just absolutely weird experiments. Which is really fun. Now, you mentioned you still have some of your NES collection. Do you still have the NES itself?
Yes and no. I say this because I remember our NES it didn't work back in the day, and Mom was like, "Okay, I'll see if I can get it fixed. No guarantees." We never got it fixed. It stayed in the basement storage, just in case Mom ever could get it fixed. Because Mom, like I said, my mom really enjoyed her puzzle games. So like, it's funny because I still own the copy of Kiko Cube and Lola Land, and she always reminds me on a daily basis, I need those games back. I really want to play those games. I'm like, I'll bring them home at some point.
So wait, did she get another NES then, or?
No. She got an NES Mini, which
Okay.
I don't know if it has been cracked or not, but she's still gung ho about getting those 2 games back so she can play those specifically. But yeah, we kind of own the NES still. I just haven't really sat down to see if I could get it to work or not.
That's fair. So it sounded like you might have already answered this question, because I find a lot in these conversations, there's maybe the console that the parents brought to the young version of my guest, and that really got them into gaming. Was there a console that you really kind of identified as like your first thing that was really truly just yours? Like maybe you saved up money for it or something like that?
That would have been the GameCube. That's when around that time I got my first job, and I was very, very happy because like got my first job. I was able to go into town by myself too. Like I had my own vehicle and everything. So like my first couple paychecks I saved up and got a GameCube, and I was so happy about that. Do
you still have that one?
I still have my lunchbox. Yeah.
Okay.
It's still chilling. I like a lot of the consoles I grew up with. I still have, like even my old SNES, I still have, with the top half still gray, the bottom half that yellow color. Yeah, that sweet yellow color. Just the nostalgia go right there.
Yeah, no, that's that particular color. I remember I grew up in the big old house that was just perfect for having windows that would yellow everything, and so I would end up with all these electronics that would have very specific sun patterns on them, especially on those like yellow portions of devices.
I don't know how the SNES became like that yellow. Well, granted, like I've heard smoking also contributes to that. My dad used to smoke quite a bit because like the SNES, most of my consoles were in the basement, so like they didn't get a lot of direct sunlight. So I'm wondering if it's just contributive, like indirect, and then I guess the smoking. I don't know.
Could be any one of them. I mean, it's hard to know, right? Like maybe it's only what you can remember at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But so that's bringing us forward in time. How did speedrunning enter your life?
There's kind of 3 major points that kind of contribute to that. I started doing YouTube, like in regards to Let's Plays. I think like, I don't remember how long, like 4 or some years ago, because I was playing video games. I was just kind of like, I want to do something more with just playing video games. And I noticed there was a lot of people doing Let's Plays, and I figured, why not give it a shot? If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's whatever. So I did it, and I started like with Don't Starve. Then I kind of started doing Let's Plays of point and click games. And then I discovered Twitch, and I was like, okay, let's watch Twitch when I'm editing these videos. And like I stumbled onto people playing casual games. And then I don't know when, but I stumbled onto Games Done Quick, which I believe a lot of people on these podcasts have said like their introduction was with Games Done Quick.
Yeah, it's usually I feel like the nexus is like I was goofing off on YouTube and I stumbled upon this Games Done Quick video. That's everyone. The only people I feel like who don't do that are like truly OG people, like Peaches, who is a speedrunning fossil.
Yeah, but yeah, I like definitely like a lot of people with like Games Done Quick, and also RPG Limit Break. I started seeing that one pop up here and there. So I started watching a little bit of speedrunners here and there of like games that really intrigued me. And I remember casually playing on Twitch because I went from YouTube to Twitch because just my time management, it was easier to kind of start hopping onto Twitch in regards to like making content. And I was playing Kodelka, and there was Figbird.
Classic.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend Kodelka. There was a speedrunning Figbird in the channel just talking with me, just hanging out, and then the world record runner and a person who put a lot of effort into the speedrunning of Kodelka, I'm going to butcher his name, I'm so sorry, Dylenka, popped in and was kind of like, this is good RNG. That's okay. Oh, that was a bad item pickup. And we just got talking about speedruns alongside with Figbird, who's also a speedrunner. He hasn't popped up since. He pops up here and there, but I was just kind of talking to them, and it kind of intrigued me about the speedrunning. And it wasn't until I watched Carcinogen speedrun Clock Tower, Jennifer's storyline, like the good ending. And I was watching the speedrun. I'm like, this isn't bad. Although I do see some places that, like, you could definitely shorten the time in this route. And I mean, oh heck with it. Let's just start routing it. Let's do this. And that's how I got into speedrunning.
Awesome. No, that's a really good. I mean, you named a bunch of great names and games there, and then also that idea too of, like, because you already got to what would have been my next question, which was, what was the thing, having discovered it, that then pushed you over the edge into trying it, and that was seeing a game that you felt like you could improve the route on, like that drew you into actually doing it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Like I noticed with Clock Tower, like Clock Tower. I should elaborate. Not the SNES one. I'm talking about Clock Tower on the PlayStation. In the Clock Tower community, we usually call it Clock Tower 2, Clock Tower Ghost Head. It just makes explaining Clock Tower just easier in general. So Clock Tower 2, which I'll call it from here on out, it's not a whole lot happens in the run. You're just hitting X to win, but the way you can like save time is by knowing where you put your mouse cursor throughout the transitions. So I did the route, which was pretty straightforward, but then I went and made little image references of where you're supposed to put your mouse cursor throughout the entire run. Tedious, yes. Did it work? Yes. It saved a lot of time.
Oh, that's excellent. I think I'll have some questions about those later, but before we dive into the runs, I want to get some specific global takes about speedrunning, which is so Clock Tower 2, the Japanese name for the Clock Tower PS1 game. Your first speedrun, pretty much, that was your actual first thing doing it yourself?
Yeah, basically that was my first one that got me into speedrunning. It's been there. It's still stuck in my mind. It's been there for a while. I do have to go back to it because someone has actually improved the route, and I'm very excited to look at that and kind of improve my time with that.
So now, overall, I love takes. What would you say is your favorite speedrun of the runs that you've done?
Honestly, Tulip is my favorite speedrun. It's such a quirky and weird game, but as a speedrun, it's knowing what I would highly recommend, and I'm always going to shamelessly plug Tulip. Highly recommend playing that game casually. It is amazing. But the speedrun has everything. If you want RNG, Tulip has RNG. If you want out of bounds glitches, it has it. If you want really amazing music, it's got it. But yeah, the out of bounds in Tulip, it's hard to pull off, but once you pull it off, it's hilarious, and it saves so much time in that speedrun.
Yeah, no, I've read about that game and how it kind of had a troubled path to coming to an English localization, but it's definitely been something that sounds like a fun casual play. So I'm glad to hear you plug it, because it sounds like more people ought to play it.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Did you want to say anything about the tool?
I highly recommend it, and I know it's expensive, but on the PlayStation Network for PS3, you can get a copy for it for $20. So there's no reason.
Is that the North American network?
Yeah, that's the North American one.
Okay. Also, one of my hills that I die on in speedrunning is that legalize loading from hard drive on PS2. Anyway, I've done plugging it. What would you say is your least favorite speedrun of the ones that you've done?
I do have quite a handful, but the one that always comes to mind is Mystic Quest. I haven't touched that in ages, and there's a reason. It's just, I just didn't have fun running it. It's weird because a lot of my speedruns I do are mostly games not many people have heard of, and Mystic Quest is the one that people have heard of, but it's not my favorite one. I just don't have fun playing it and speedrunning it. It's just your route goes fine. And then you get to these hurdles, and you get to Pan Zuzu, as I always like to call him. And he just can derail your run in an instant. And then you get to this other obstacle that's just derails it in an instant. And it just at a point of like working on that speed run, I just didn't have fun with it. And it's just basically it. If I didn't have a fun time with that speed run, I'm just not going to go back to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely the right approach to take. Speedrunning is a big time commitment, and there's no reason to do it just because, you feel like you should do it or something like that. So that is, again, whenever I ask that question, I'm not trying to put a particular speedrunning community on blast, disclaimer on that. I'm sure I've watched some people do Mystic Quest, and it seems like fine.
It's fun until you get to Panzuzu's tower, and then you just want to take your cart and, gently put it in the garbage can and walk away, but then quickly come back and pick it up, because that's not how you treat it as an SNES cartridge.
Neat. All right, so last general question for just sort of background stuff. Do you feel, when it comes to your approach to selecting games to speedrun or things like that, or your contributions to speedrunning at large, do you feel like you have a mission statement, whether that be in routing, glitch hunting, etc., or some combination of those?
I find more of a combination of like routing. I really enjoy routing and kind of seeing like where we can take this route, and if there's any way we can save more time or do something else that would benefit later on the route. I really enjoy just kind of trimming the fat off a route to make it a little more tighter. And then also getting really unknown games out there. Like, I enjoy the fact of finding a game that's really obscure and being like, I like this game. Let's see how the speed run is, and let's have fun with it. And just those two combinations I just really enjoy when it comes to speed running.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I've definitely been there for a few games myself as well, where I play because it's in my zone of interest, and then I speedrun and I discover things, and then it says, oh, okay, well, other people need to know about this. Let's broadcast it with speedrunning.
Yeah, and like there's so much information on the internet too nowadays in regards to certain speedruns. So like if you do enough digging, you can just find that small little bit of information online that like you can save so much time on a speedrun with just by digging.
Here's a question for you then, before maybe we get to the specific games. Being someone who maybe picks up games that aren't, perhaps fully routed yet or things like that, would you have any comments about your approach to doing research, right? Because certainly a part of routing is just playing the game yourself and testing things. But oftentimes, whether it be searching YouTube, forums, things like that, do you have any favorite places to go or comments about that kind of process generally?
Based on the game, I find like going on YouTube, like definitely words. Playing the game casually helps quite a bit, because then you get an understanding of the game and like what the game wants you to do, and like what items are here, what's item there. Essentially, trying to go for that 100% completion really helps. And then like start going to like game facts and start going through YouTube and try going through Nico, because I've noticed there's a lot of stuff on Nico where like they have done speed runs or they've done like little how-tos, and they'll find certain things that you may not have noticed, or just going further beyond and like trying to find guides in different languages and translating it, or even go extreme and try to find the strategy guide.
Have you had luck with, when you say strategy guide, you do mean a physical printed strategy guide?
Yeah, physical printed.
Have you had luck with, has a strategy guide contributed to a speed run for you?
One run, and that was Shadow Madness. And we may discuss that one later on, but I mean, I want to say I have a little tangent / rant about that guide, but the guide was helpful, at the same time not.
That's very interesting. Okay, all right. Let's start diving into games then. We're going to start with Clock Tower again. This is, for a North American audience, this was the game called Clock Tower. We're probably going to keep referring to it as Clock Tower 2, which is its Japanese name. In particular, the run that I watched was the Jennifer 100% run. It seems like you've done, though, multiple categories in this game. Is the Jennifer 100% like your favorite category, or do you have any thoughts about the different categories in the game?
I will say the Jennifer one is straightforward. It's nice. If you want something very straightforward, stick with Jennifer. If you want some RNG peppered in your Clock Tower 2 runs, go with Helen. Her runs have like certain points that RNG will determine if you get to see Scissorman or if you don't. It's fun, but a little bit of hair pulling at the same time.
So let's get to. It sounded to me. So I was watching this, and I've seen some Clock Tower before. I've previously Dices was a guest on this, and we had discussed the first Clock Tower for SNES, and so some of that, you have a cursor on screen and you're kind of mashing through some things, and it seemed like some of that was going on in this game. But you mentioned that a way that you improved the route for this was by specific placement of the cursor. Can you talk about how you figured that out and why that saves time?
It was just by watching Carcinogen's run and noticing where you put the cursor, and when the transition happened, you would have to move your cursor to another area. And also it helps too when I started speedrunning it, being starting to kind of piece in I need to put my cursor here, because when that transition happens, the cursor stays in place. So if I put it here and just keep hitting X, the game will prompt immediately taking that action. So you save quite a bit of time of trying to move your mouse to that location when it's already there, just hitting X and just going. The only problem in general, any of that any Clock Tower 2 run is the running mechanic, because you obviously want your characters to run, but in order for them to run, you got to double tap the X. And sometimes the game will be cool, I'll do that. And sometimes the game is I'm just going to flail for a bit, and then I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
So one of the things I have in my notes, because I was wondering about, is at one point you remarked upon touching Nolan's butt. And so Nolan's butt is one of those setups for having the cursor in the right place.
Sorry, I pushed the talk. I was just laughing when you were saying Nolan's butt. Oh, yeah, Nolan's butt. Yeah, that's one part is touching Nolan's butt. It's, yep, you get to do that.
So when watching the run as a casual viewer, one of the things I noted was that it seems so again, this is you're playing the Japanese version with fastest speed on a PS2 in the run that I watched, and it sounded like the voice lines were all still. This is one of those games where the voice lines are all English, and but they're sped up. Is that a product of fast disc speed, or is that because you're mashing?
That's a product of the disc speed being fast, is
okay.
that the audio goes incredibly fast. And it's interesting you bring that up because the North American Clock Tower and the JP both have different audio. They're both English audio tracks, but they're different. Because apparently when they were bringing it to North America, they lost the audio track for the Japanese version. So they had to go back and redo the audio. So you definitely notice a difference between the two in regards to the audio. But I mean, it doesn't matter in a speed run because the disc speed is set to fast. So you just hear it just go completely fast. It's hilarious.
No, that's a classic goof. That's I think the first instance of that I remember was the credits to Alundra. The song just plays at double speed, which is classic goof. Actually, I should have asked this at the front end of things. Was your introduction to this game watching that stream with Carcinogen, or had you played this game before?
No, actually, my first occurrence with this game was actually, I believe it was a Game Fan magazine. When I was really young, I picked up was looking at a magazine because Mom had to do banking, and in the bank there was a little kiosk where you could buy your cigarettes, your magazines. So that back in the 90s, I will emphasize the 90s part of it. And I was looking through this Game Fan magazine, and I stumbled upon Clock Tower in that. And I remember the ad, and I remember the image, and there's one particular image of the girl, the dead girl in the bathroom scene, and that stuck with me until later on when I'm what was that game that I remember in my head? And I looked it up. I'm oh, that's Clock Tower. I should go play that. And I found a copy and I played it. I'm I like this. This is a good game. It's cheesy, but it's fun.
I mean, the campy stuff is often, I think, incredibly fun. There's no complaints from me on that part. Is there other tech that you wanted to highlight on this? Because I know I've been asking about things that were maybe obvious from watching, but besides the running and the cursor placement, Is there other stuff going on here? I mean, is there anything in particular to RNG or to accomplishing 100%?
Jennifer's route is pretty straightforward. The only time that there is RNG, and I mean, I don't know if there's any really RPG and manipulation. I'm good at the routing part. The glitches part, I'm finding glitches, and that part I'm not the greatest with. That is one of my weaknesses. But there's a tablet near in the final scenario that is completely randomized. Like if you want to pick up the tablet to see what the icon is, you can. But like you can squint and kind of tell what the tablet is. It rotates between sun, moon, and star. So like when you're running in the church, it always changes. You have to kind of keep your eyes on, be like, I think that's a moon, or running with the moon. That's the only part in Jennifer's that's really RNG. I bring up Helen's again because Helen's has so many parts in that game that is pure RNG, because for some reason Helen has to go in these rooms to pick up this item that the chances of Scissor Man appearing is like a 50-50 chance, and it's in every single scenario that she has to go into these rooms, and it's just RNG.
And that's compared to Jennifer's, where really the expectation isn't that you're going to encounter Scissor Man quite as much.
No, with Jennifer's, you're going into rooms that don't have that chance of him appearing. It's just basically go in this room, grab this, go here, grab this, leave, the end. Where Helen's is like, okay, if you get Scissor Man here, you got to get rid of him here. Go to this room. If he appears again, you got to go here. If he appears, you might as well just restart your run. Just start over.
Great. So you mentioned that this Jennifer 100% category, someone has improved upon it, but you haven't had a chance to visit that run yet to know what the difference is?
No, I haven't. Like, I watched a little bit of the speedrun, and I'm pretty confident it's just him taking the elevator, but I haven't had time to look at it. I'm really excited to, because like I was pretty confident that one was like, there's nothing really improved on, everything's fine. And then this gentleman has come in and kind of improved the route. I'm really excited because, like, awesome. Someone new, different set of eyes, looking at the route, found something to improve it, and here we are with an improved route. I'm super excited to look at it.
Yeah, that always, honestly, especially for people, I think, who maybe run games that aren't active or like no one else runs them, having someone else come in and being like, oh, you could do this with a fresh set of eyes is always so cool. I've definitely been fortunate enough that, you know, after doing my initial pass and research, to have had other people come in and really improve my life by being like, actually, you know, this really annoying sequence, we could just skip it. I'm like, that's great. Well, let's do it.
Yeah, like a good example I'm going to bring up is you've had him before on the channel, Ecdysis, or I just like to call him Ek, because back in the day I had problems pronouncing Ecdysis, so I just stuck with Ek. When he came in and started working on Clock Tower for the SNES, I remember him bringing up like, hey, has anyone tried this? And I mean, at the time, I was pretty much one of the... I ran it, but not like how Ek ran it. It was just kind of like, no one's tried it. I don't know if it's going to work. If it does, fantastic. And like just having that new eyes come and destroy the run, and then further people coming in and destroying that route further and further to what we have now for that speedrun.
Yeah, no, that collaboration is really great. That's what I always tell people about speedrunning, is that really the most exciting part. Like competition is a motivator, but it's the collaboration and producing the route, which is really, you know, I think the true fun.
Yeah, definitely. Especially like a lot of the runs I play, there's not a whole lot of community. So when that person comes in and changes the route, it's like, what have you done? What have you done to the run? I need to know. What did you do? Holy crap, I did not think of that. Let's apply that, and let's try applying it elsewhere.
Right, that's too. You have the one discovery, and suddenly, you know, sometimes depending on the, you know, general applicability of the technique, suddenly it's everywhere, because, you know, maybe you as a runner who has played the whole game more times through, or has done the 100% stuff. Like I think you mentioned before, the very good point of, you know, learn every corner, like nook and cranny of the game, because you don't know that even if it doesn't seem like something you need to do to finish the game, maybe it turns out that feature can be exploited.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's go to another game. I love looking up long lists of games and you're just combing through for like RPGs and things with mechs and all sorts of things, and I've mostly stuck to games that had versions in English, so you know, either North America or PAL. And recently I've gone a little more into looking at Japanese only games, and I have never heard of Ancient Roman Power of Dark Side, which, and like this RPG looks, I think if like I'm intrigued by it. I am deeply intrigued to learn how you came upon this and what compelled you to play it and then speedrun it. But like also just wow, because I think some people will look at this and be like, this is garbage. But like I can't stress enough that especially just like RPGs like this from PlayStation 1 are just so interesting, and watching it was very fascinating. I watched it for folks who want to see this game for themselves. I do recommend watching the same run that I recommended, which was when you presented Ancient Roman at GDQ Hotfix, which I think was recorded last year of September 2019. But let's get into it. How did you learn about Ancient Roman Power of Dark Side?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say first, since you're talking about Ancient Roman, all I have is this big grin on my face, like, oh, we ready to talk about Ancient Roman, are we? Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, Ancient Roman. I don't know when, but I decided to go through the rabbit hole of YouTube and find like bad PlayStation 1 games, and I found this YouTube video. It was a video from. Specifically for Japanese games, and it was showing like the worst PlayStation 1 games. It was a 2-part video. And so I watched this video and I'm like, okay, that's good. That's an interesting game. And then Ancient Roman popped up. I'm like, what is this game? It's an RPG. What? And then I'm like, I have to know more about this game. And back then there was a little bit of videos peppered here and there, and I watched the one video. Oh my goodness, I can't remember her name. I apologize. Basically kind of translating the game roughly. And I watched the video. I'm like, this is glorious. And this is an RPG. I have to play this game casually. So I got an emulator running, and I've casually played it on a stream, and it was amazing. It was glorious. Those cutscenes, oh my goodness. Just, so great.
Now with this game, my understanding from, you know, watching the GDQ Hotfix recording is that there's no script, there's no English script, there's no translation patch, there's nothing like that. What was your approach for understanding both, you know, the plot as well as how to play the game?
I basically played the game with a mentality of, I think that's what happened. So like a cutscene would happen, I'm like, okay, Grandpa died. I know a little bit Japanese. He's saying something about going somewhere. And then later on being like, we have the cutscene where Kai's mom is there. It's like, okay, there's Kai's mom. I'm guessing we have to go find the mom. I mean, we kind of did. Kind of not. And just kind of piecing together things here and there. When it came to routing the game, that was a fun time. I had a lot of notebooks for each and every town and being like, what is this? What can I pick up in this town? This is what I can pick up. Write what it says. What does it do? I think it does this. Let's write it down. Let's continue that mentality for every single town of writing what items are in this town, what's in the shops, what do these do, so on and so forth. Now,
so you talked about finding some videos of people playing this game. Is there, I know from looking at the speedrun.com leaderboard that you are the sole moderator and you are the sole runner. Are there any Japanese runs out there hanging out on something like Nico Nico?
There is actually 2 runners for Ancient Roman. I could not find these videos. Like, it's incredibly hard. It is so hard to find speedruns in Nico Nico.
Yeah, no, I'm Armored Core runner here. Yeah, it's real hard.
Oh my goodness. Like, it wasn't like I stumbled onto this because I typed in like the katakana for Ancient Roman, like the katakana title, whatever. And I typed in, I think, like RTA or speedrun or something, and I found this leaderboard that showed 2 other runners. And I'm like, there's other speedrunners. Holy pickles. I found 2 other runners. And my mind was blown. This was after I had my route, and I think after even maybe Frame for Taos. Don't quote me 100%. But I watched the route, and like I watched the one, which was like 5-6 hours. It was really long. And there was another run that was shorter, but I could never get the video going because you need the proper plugins. And it was a nightmare to get that going. It wasn't until, just quickly looking at the leaderboard here, there's a forum post about 10 months ago, a Baku Zero posted about this item glitch, which I haven't looked at yet.
I saw that post and I was like, what? What is going on here?
There's an item glitch. I've tried to get it to work. I couldn't. And he posted a video of that one run that I could not watch comparing to my run. And I'm like, this is the run I need to watch. This route is doing something completely different that I'm not doing. Oh boy. I need to go back to Ancient Roman, and I need to like rebuild my route essentially, and I just haven't gone to it yet because it's quite a big project to go look at what he's done and apply it and figure out if it's beneficial or what I can do to change it. It's quite a big project.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed about these more obscure RPGs is that it's a really just intense labor of love to realize a speedrun for them. I feel like some of the energy that you're giving me right now from this description of this process matches up very well with Pete Dorr talking about Ephemeral Fantasia. Oh,
that's one game I'm looking into, and Pete's like, I warn you, you shouldn't. It's hard. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready yet. But
it's so punishing. I skimmed through his PB, his only finished run, and there's like a part where he just spends an hour trying not to get through a minigame so he can have enough cash to do something. It's terrifying.
I think he was playing, oh my goodness, what's the... I forget what it's called. It was in my head, and then the title of the game, the minigame, just flew out of the window. But yeah, that minigame where he's playing like forever to just get that proper money amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched it. I'm still intrigued. I don't know why. Something is wrong with me when it comes to speedruns. I really like the obscure, weird ones. I don't know why.
I mean, I think the reason, if I had to guess, it's for the reasons you already said, which is that it's just fun to make these discoveries, to feel like you're on the frontier of speedrunning. I find myself very much the same way. Where when, especially like the thing that will instantly draw my attention, maybe you're the same way, is if I learn that there is a technique, if there's a trick, but it has not been fully applied to every part of the game. Like that just seems like the most exciting stuff. And I feel like maybe that's also where you're at too.
Yeah, that's words. Sorry. That does bring up to like Tulip. There is one out of bounds that can be applied to the route, but it's really hard to pull off because you have to get enough cicadas in order to like get this early out of bounds. Not many people have done it, but it's been something that I've been I mentioned myself and the other the gentleman who has broken the game in half. Oh my goodness, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce his name. Otoishi. I apologize if I butchered the name. He's mentioned like it can be applied to the route. I don't know if he has yet, but I imagine when it comes to like improving that Tulip run, that Michelle out of bounds glitch would definitely be used to shorten that game further.
Well, there you go, folks. Play Tulip and then get into running it. Do it.
Yeah, sorry about the rambles there, but yeah.
That's fine. That's exciting. I as I said, that's to me is just great information to share. Some of the things I wanted to highlight to folks listening about Ancient Roman, because there are some really astonishing details in this game. You're only allowed to have one save file. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
One save file. You can save anywhere though.
Yeah,
almost anywhere.
You can save anywhere, which is fantastic. In an RPG, like that is amazing.
So I think a lot of people will remember games like, Final Fantasy VII or Wild Arms or other things like that, which when an enemy dies, maybe they'll like melt or they'll just like poof red and like fade away. Ancient Roman has, I think, the best death animation of all RPGs I've ever seen, which is they just yeet off the screen.
Yeah, they just Team Rocket away, essentially. They just blast away. It's when you're first playing that game and you see that death animation, like Oh, I died laughing. Like, it's such a amazing way for an enemy to go. Just bye now.
And it happens to player characters too, right?
It does. It's hilarious.
Can you revive player characters? Like, does it reverse? I don't think I saw that during the run. If that happens,
you can revive. There's only one spell that does revive the characters. I don't remember what the spell is called because it's all katakana and it's named after some vehicle. That's like some vehicle in Japan. Yeah, all the spells are named after vehicles. But you can get the spell and it revives your party members. But you can also talk to this chicken like 5 times and it'll give you that spell for free.
How did you find that? Or maybe someone else found that?
I believe I watched a Nico video of it. They were just talking to this rooster and then they got an item and I'm like, what? And so I did it. And I'm like, I have no idea what this is.
That's foul play.
I guess we gotta try it. Okay, it heals. Okay, and then like I think I had a bad situation where majority of the party died and like I need to heal. Let's use it and to resurrect people. I'm like, holy crap! It's a resurrection spell. Okay, I know what it does now. Please add to my notes.
That's a discovery. That's a real important one. Speaking of important discoveries, one of the from watching the hotfix video, I learned that apparently one of the most important elements for being able to speedrun the game is an axe that has a status effect attached to it, the sleepy axe.
The sleepy axe. Oh,
can you talk
goodness.
about how this was discovered and why it works?
I basically stumbled upon it because I was in that town. I don't know what the town's called. I call it the Circus Elven Town because it's a town that's very colorful. And I was just writing down like the katakana for like all those items and I bought them and then I went to test everything out and I'm like, I can't remember. Oh, it was a fight that Baku had by himself with the Earth Guardian. I was using that axe and I was attacking him and I'm like, he's not attacking me at all. Okay, fine. Well, I found and then I think I did another run where I found this better axe and I equipped it. And then I went to fight the Earth Guardian. I'm like, he's attacking me. Why is he attacking me? Wait a second. I go back to the town and buy that sleepy axe and use it. I'm like, wait a second. This axe puts enemies to sleep. Oh my goodness, this is a sleepy axe. I found an item that breaks the boss fights from here on out. And like I remember my notes having like this is a sleepy weapon, just all this like freaking out points in my notes of like I found an item that destroys like enemies.
Yeah, I mean it seems like anytime that you're only fighting one enemy, there is no resistance to this sleep effect. And so you're able to pretty much just lock down an enemy with this axe, right?
It's great. Like it's for the rest of the run. Once you get that axe, like bosses can be put to sleep with the thing. Enemies can. So like essentially, it's your pure crowd control, especially the second last boss fight where they throw in this really hard fight where you have to fight the 3 enemies at once. Like that CP axe helps so much in that fight because without it, it was originally. Pray that you're high enough level. Pray that they don't do this. If you party wipe, you're going to just have to reload your file and try again.
And of course, there's still stuff in the game that no one knows what it does. I think I remember at one point during the run, there's mention of a mysterious or ominous charm of the effect no one knows.
Oh yeah, the oh my goodness, I can't remember what the name is called, but yeah, that charm. It doesn't help with the game when you buy equipment. It doesn't tell you like if it increases attack, if it increases defense, what it does. It's just you buy this pair of sunglasses, and then you equip it, and it's like it increases your defense by 1. Thanks, game. And yeah, that one charm. People don't know what it does. Apparently it's supposed to repel enemies. It doesn't seem to work. The game doesn't really tell you. The instruction manual doesn't tell you. It could just be a joke item. No one knows.
Yeah, who knows, right? I mean, it could be like the Parasite Eve charms, my favorite junk item. Thanks, Maida.
Hey, Maida has good intentions there. He gives you those charms. You thank him. He's trying his best to help you out.
Yeah, he is. He really is. So at this point, you mentioned already that this is a lot of work to do a run like this, and it sounds like you haven't covered it in a little bit. I noticed we were earlier discussing that item glitch post, which is I think like 10 months ago. Do you have plans to return to this? I mean, to explore that item glitch, or is there any other sort of I shouldn't say low-hanging fruit, because getting into the endeavor of playing Ancient Rome, it doesn't seem like there's really any low-hanging fruit involved, but perhaps something that you have in mind were you to return to the game.
I do have plans to return to it. It's just getting back into like basically taking my route and starting it from scratch. I'm just not ready to like this. A lot of the speedruns where it's just kind of like I need a break. I had an old university teacher have a good explanation for like the burnout is like that pizza theory where you eat a lot of pizza, you eat a lot of pizza, and then like you just get tired of it. You don't want any more pizza. I'm kind of like that with some of my speedruns where it's like, I want to get back to it, but I'm not ready because I may have burned myself a little too much on it. I've consumed way too much Ancient Roman. I need a break.
Now it sounded like, so I watched the hotfix recording of this. It sounds like you've done this at other events though, right? Is that correct? Because you mentioned maybe a Femme Fatales.
Yeah, I've done it at Frame Fatales. I've done it at Questing for Glory.
Oh, right, Frame Fatales. I've been looking too much at Norse stuff recently. Ignore me.
No worries. And then I've done it for the Valks as well. I'm trying to remember if it was for Ragnarok or it's for the other event. I believe it's for Ragnarok. Sorry, it's Ancient Roman has done its like tour of like marathons.
I'm just imagining that like a T-shirt, like the Ancient Roman Tour 2019.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've also forgotten about Professor Palmer's speedrun marathon, the boss one. It has been in there too. It's been around quite a bit. Yeah, it definitely needs a T-shirt. Awesome.
No, that's great. Honestly, I feel like I often do the same thing too. When I find like a particular bad game that everyone needs to find, like I definitely had like the True Crime New York City tour, and I'm on the Die Hard Nakatomi Plaza tour right now. So it's nice. Fun to do.
Yeah, I think, oddly enough, this game, the only marathon it hasn't popped into is RPG Limit Break, shockingly enough. Just saying, subtle hint for that to Limit Break.
Just any folks from Limit Break, watching this or listening to this, then bear that in mind. Speaking of other games, maybe now is the time to transition to other games that should be in RPG Limit Break. More recently, you have run Shadow Madness, which is a game that I tried playing it once, like a few years back. I bounced off it because I just had trouble looking at it, and I was like, this doesn't look great. I will say, after watching Ancient Roman and going to Shadow Madness, I thought Shadow Madness really has a lot of great pre-rendered backgrounds, and really Shadow Madness definitely looks better than Ancient Roman. Ancient Roman's still very interesting to watch, though. A thing, but maybe as a transition segment between Ancient Roman and Shadow Madness, this recording of Shadow Madness that I watched, which I believe is your PB, current world record, has a bit of a B plot in the recording, which is that you are attempting to consume a cup of durian coffee.
Oh, yeah.
How did this happen?
Okay. So, so once in a while, my husband and I will go out and we'll go to like an Asian supermarket. Like I live in Canada, so like your T&T, your H Mart, and we'll buy random items just to see. Because I mean, that's the only way you're going to discover new things is by trying different things. And like, you may like it, you may not. And I went to the coffee aisle and I saw this cute packaging of coffee, instant coffee, that had a durian on it. The durian was cute, and I'm like, let's try durian coffee. And I needed to drink something during a speed run. I'm like, you know what? Let's try the durian coffee. Now's the perfect time to try durian coffee. Oh boy,
what a statement!
That was a fun time.
So, I mean, for people who aren't familiar with durian, I've never tried it myself, but my understanding is that like it's a pretty normal fruit, except it's legendary for having a bad odor. I think like the urban legend is that it's like banned on public transit in some places.
Yeah, because with durian, you're not supposed to have warm or like in room temperature. If you want durian, you need to freeze your durian first before you crack it open, because the smell like I can't say nullified because I haven't had fresh durian, but this is from a old manager whose relatives and cousins used to constantly give him durian. He would mention like, yeah, you toss that in the freezer before you crack it open. You don't crack it open at room temperature. You freeze it, you pull it out, and that's when you crack it open because the smell is not as like potent.
Well, and yeah, and it definitely during the recording, it sounded like your significant other had some objections to the smell of durian.
Well, I didn't realize that because like you're drinking the durian cold or warm, pardon, not cold. I found out later on because I subjected myself further with durian coffee and was playing Deadly Premonition 2. It's better cold. But with warm durian, I didn't realize it would make the house smell like durian. So my poor husband at the time was sleeping. He woke up to the house smelling like durian. And then he comes in, he's like, what is happening with our house? And I'm like, I'm drinking durian coffee. He went downstairs. And like, I think during the run, he comes up and he mentions like the basement now smells like durian. So yeah, word to the wise, don't drink durian coffee.
There you go. Lesson learned. All right, let's actually talk about Shadow Madness. With Shadow Madness, this is a game that is more discoverable. I think maybe I've heard about this one for a long time because I think largely because of the Ted Woolsey's involvement. It was previously known as a translator for like Final Fantasy VI and other games, and I think it was a part of the writing team for Shadow Madness, a Western developed JRPG style game. Was this a game that you had played at a younger age before coming to it as a speedrun?
No, it was one of those games that I remember seeing it in a video game magazine yet again, and it just stuck in my head. It wasn't until like a long time ago. I don't remember when, but I had to make a trip. I'm from Canada, so I had to make a trip to like Edmonton. I had to make a quick stop into Red Deer because I knew there was a retro video game store in there, and they had a copy of Shadow Madness for like $20, and I may have gasped a little and ran over and grabbed it and bought it. The guy may have given me a weird look because like it's not a big famous title. But I mean, it made my day. It made my trip of finding this game for $20. And then I only started playing it casually a couple years ago. And then I finally beat it. And I was like, I kind of want to route this. And then I started routing Shadow Madness after playing the game casually.
Now, at this time, were you routing from scratch? Because I remember seeing some time ago that the RPG speedrunner Rudy XX had done a run of this. Were you routing with his run in mind, or had that run not existed yet?
So I started the route from scratch, and I basically started routing this game around the time when I went to RPG Limit Break for the first time. I believe during my Tecmo Seeker the Stars Run, pardon, is when I was slowly starting to work on Shadow Madness. And I put it aside here and there because life got in the way, other speedruns got in the way. And then I noticed Rudy, he did post his own route. I'm like, cool. Someone else routed the game as well. That's fantastic. Let's look at his notes compared to what I had, which wasn't a lot. It was like maybe like 45 minutes, an hour into the route. And I mean, there was a little bit of difference here and there, but I didn't really complete the route.
Okay, so at that point, you maybe ended up pulling some of what he was doing, or?
Yeah, basically what I did, I kind of watched his run, basically typed out everything he was doing in that route, compared to what I had, and then kind of went by memory of what I did when I played the game casually, because like I said, it's been a while since I actually routed it. Like I came back here and there. It wasn't until like this year and a little bit last year is when I really started to gear down and like actually start working on the Shadow Madness route. But yeah, it's been a long process of like looking at his route, applying that to mine, and then further digging on the web and buying the strategy guide for Shadow Madness to kind of further find information on the game in general.
Yeah, so maybe now's the time for your comments about the Shadow Madness strategy guide.
Oh boy. So, Prima is the one who published that lovely strategy guide. And I mean, I did not know this because every time when I bought a strategy guide as a kid, which was mostly Final Fantasy, I always got the Brandy Games guide because that was the one you got, was their guides, because they were the very like thorough, informative, and just overall really good quality. And I saw on Amazon someone was selling Shadow Madness perfect perfect condition guide. I'm like, sure, I'll buy the Shadow Madness Prima one, and oh boy, it's so vague on a lot of things. Like it would say in like the main walkthrough what you should do for this boss fight, and then when you went into like the little chapter about all the monsters on the boss fight, it would tell you to do something completely different. So it was very like, you're telling me this, but you're telling me this. Oh boy, at least I get to know what these enemies are weak against in regards to like poison, sleep, confusion, the other like 12 status effects in this game.
No, I hear you. I had a similar experience with a game called Slave Zero, where the strategy guide was actually authored by the writer of the game, who is otherwise also a known author. And it was wonderful for getting lore and background about the game, and her writing was very concise and clear on that. But when it came to walkthroughs of the levels, it definitely read like maybe someone else just like gave her notes and she arranged them, in a better prose. So sometimes those Prima strategy guides can be real hit or miss.
The one thing that was really nice in the Shadow Madness one was the foreword by Ted Woolsey, just saying like, we put a lot of work into this. We're proud of this game. No matter what, this is our final product. Basically enjoy. I'm just giving you footnotes because it's a little bit of a long foreword, but it was kind of nice to read Ted Woolsey's like opinion on his game, like the hard work they put into it.
Yeah, that's honestly, and that may be the best reasons, I think, to get these sort of obscure PS1 era strategy guides, is that you get cool stuff like that. Like that's a very interesting bit of history to have, considering how much his presence was I think a part of the marketing push for the game.
Yeah. And I think basically this was his last game he ever worked on. I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I think Shadow Madness was his last game he did. Or at least helped with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, maybe let's talk about... So you've been talking about, doing investigatory work in terms of resources and working off of Rudy's run. There were some interesting things in the run that I wanted to ask about, and it sounded like stuff that was still being investigated, which is that there are some... there's parts of the run where it seems like there's enforced time breaks. And there's also, I think at one point you had been talking about a room that wasn't like loading properly. Like you would try to walk into a door and it just wouldn't go. Can you talk about, especially about the 5-minute breaks and why you think that's happening?
The 5-minute breaks, it's because in the story, they're summoning Erie. Erie is this... gadgeteer town that is floating in the water. Oh no! By that point in the game, it's in the air. At some point, it crashes and then becomes just a boat, a giant city boat. Sorry, words are great. So like, it's more story related for the one that you had to wait 5 minutes, which for a speedrun is amazing. Oh my goodness, that 5-minute break! It's so nice. But there's one other one because you do get 2 5-minute breaks in the speedrun. Same thing, you're just summoning Erie, but there's this one in Benny Bokul that I really don't think it's the game's loading that tile. I really think it's a timed one. Because like I played Ancient Roman where like I've had problems entering doors and it's like, okay, game, I believe in you, game. Let's go through this. I gotta enter the door in a certain angle, walk in a certain like direction. There we go. Where like the Benny Bokul one, I've tried everything and it just seems like it may be just one that I have to sit and wait for them to summon like the giant bug to take you to a whole different area. And unfortunately, I haven't timed it yet. There's still a bunch of stuff that I need to go back to and kind of further like add into the route or take out to hopefully chop that time down further.
So beyond that kind of stuff, I did want to ask, from watching it, the speedrun, sort of skimming through some things, it wasn't too apparent to me what the particular maybe equipment skill build tactics were for doing the speedrun. I think at one point you had been mentioning an accuracy amulet as being particularly broken. Do you want to talk about sort of the approach to getting through battles and bosses?
Basically in Shadow Madness, it's just getting through it because we basically adjust the difficulty to easy. So I haven't really seen that the hard mode is the same because like when you play the game casually in Shadow Madness, at a certain point, like you are just basically overpowered in regards to levels. Like a lot of the enemies are pretty much weak. Even the final boss is pretty much a breeze. And it's kind of the same with the speedrun. Like there's no reason to buy equipment. Weapons matter, yes. Spells are kind of what's needed for one part of the game, but mostly like make sure you have MP restoring items. But yeah, the accuracy amulet, it basically takes the my goodness, the potency of your spells from like your normal 50 to like a whopping 99, like the max stat in the game, and it's just casually like shoved in a pile of logs that you could just go and acknowledge. It's the only item I think in the run where like, because usually items appear in the game as little like orbs peppered here and there. That one is the only item that's not an orb. You have to go to that log and acknowledge the pile of like wood and be like, there's an item shoved in there. You got the accuracy amulet. And yeah, it's a very potent item that just kind of breaks all the spell casting that they're doing their most like powerful max damage they can.
That's nice. That's a great discovery to get something that just sort of lets your spells go off like that. So in terms of, you already mentioned that there's stuff to be done. Do you feel like you have like a goal time in mind right now? Because obviously you have the current best time, but it sounds like you feel like there's time to be taken off yet.
I'm pretty confident there is time to be taken off because like when I finished that Shadow Madness route, I kind of made some points in my notebook of like what can actually be improved on, and like I remember specifically saying like, do we actually need to use poison? Yes or no? Looking further into that timed event, and then kind of pinpointing like easily distributing like certain items here between the two parties. And I mean, if there's any glitch standpoint or item duplication, that unfortunately I won't really be able to stumble upon. I know you can't underflow in that. The game like doesn't let you. But like I mentioned before, like glitch hunting in that's kind of my weak point. If someone wants to go try to see any glitches in Shadow Madness, I would appreciate it. But I think after those points, I don't think there's a whole lot left in the speedrun, in my opinion. Fresh eyes are always helpful, though, because like we discussed before, they see something you may not.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. There is really no. You may think like, oh, we can never get rid of this, but sometimes someone's like, well, how about this method, and then and it exposes some flaw in the game, which is exciting. So hopefully that happens, folks. You've heard it here. Your future speedruns, Ancient Roman and Shadow Madness. Get to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm still gung-ho about somebody giving like an English script or translation to Ancient Roman. I would love to know the story of that game and how serious it is compared to like I think it happened, I think this is what is happening story that I usually give while running that game.
Do you know if the developers, I mean, we're back on Ancient Roman, did the developers ever do anything else? Is that their only game like Shadow Madness?
Ancient Roman, I don't know because it's really hard to find information. There's only one person I know who went forward, and that's one of the music composers. He went on to work on other music projects. The one he's a part of is Bravely Default as well, and he's done other things afterwards. I don't remember the gentleman's name. I do apologize, but yeah, one of the musicians went on after that and continued his music career.
All right. Well, let's maybe that we've come around to Ancient Roman is a sign that we need to start winding the podcast down. So let's get into some fun end stuff. One of the things I like to do with this interview series is to invoke some connective tissue by sort of having a chain of questions from one guest to the next. And so that means that I have from the previous guest, Amerlin, a question for you, which is, in your speed games, what trick would you like most to discover? Whether that be something that you think you're on the cusp of discovering or skipping something that would just make your life wonderful.
Ooh, yeah. I think it would be nice, like in an RPG sense, it would be nice to discover like that item duplication glitch. Like just, you wouldn't have to worry about buying that item. You could just glitch how many of them and then sell it for how much money and be able to afford like anything you want in the game would be fantastic. I think that'd be my one big, like, I would love to like get that item duplication glitch in any RPG speedrun. That'd be just amazing.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty solid one. Having grown up with like Wild Arms as like my first RPG, and knowing that you can overflow or underflow items in that to dupe them, has always made me be like, oh, can you dupe in this now?
Always checking when you're selling something. Can you take that item to the negatives? Can we take it to negative? And what's the effect? It's always nice to find out.
Oh yeah. Now that does mean though that I will need a question from you for my next guest. Doesn't have to be necessarily speedrun specific. Could be generally gaming. Ones that we've had in the past are like if you could mix two consoles to make a new console, or favorite soundtrack, favorite composer, things like that. Just sort of any question for a future. You don't know who that runner is going to be. I do, but you don't.
Yeah, that's very true. The only thing that I've thought about this, because I've listened to your other episodes just kind of prepare in a sense, and like I was kind of thinking of the question. The only thing I can come up with, because I play a lot of games that are very obscure, possibly bad, what would be that run's breaking point for like a speedrunner? Would it be the music? Would it be the graphics? Would it be like just the RNG? What would be the one thing that runner, it would be like that breaking point of like, I can't do this run anymore just because I can't stand the music, I can't stand like the RNG, something like that. I think that would be my question.
So the questions like would be, when evaluating a game as a potential speed run, what do you feel is like the most common like break point for you, or like no, the music or something like is that the idea of the question?
Yeah, sorry, that was very long-winded, but yeah, I think that would be my question. It's just like, what would be that one thing that would just say nope in a speed run for you?
Okay, now that's a good one. That's I always feel like I always worried I'm putting people on the spot with this little gimmick, but I've been really happy with everyone and the stuff that they give me, so that's neat. Any future games that you're really excited for? I think I know one because you're tweeting about it a lot, and I hope you'll talk about it. But
I'm totally not tweeting about this awesome, fantastic, superb game that's being released on the Switch come August 27th called Moon RPG or Moon Remix and RPG Adventure.
I'm curious, like, can you tell me why you're excited? Because I've seen the trailer and like visually it reminds me of like a little bit of Soccer Frontier and some other things, which is a neat visual style. But like, what else has you excited about this game?
Well, first of all, I'm going to blame Professor Palmer for just being like, hey, Pa, you should check out this weird, like, obscure game called Moon. I think it's right up your alley. It basically was. It's an anti-RPG. It's basically from the same, I want to say same person, but same group, Love to Link. The same people that made Tulip also helped with this game. And this is a game that's like, it's a cult classic in Japan. And the fact that it's finally coming to North America is just mind-blowing. Like, I never thought I would be able to play Moon, like, translate English. Like, I do own a Japanese copy of it. And I mean, I get the gist of what's happening, but like to truly experience it right now, I'm just so excited. And hopefully maybe speedrun it. I'm just so excited. Yeah. Like, it's basically Tulip before Tulip.
Mm-hmm. No, that sounds really cool. I mean, the fact that we're seeing more of these types of games from that era that didn't get localizations but are now doing so. I mean, the second Densetsu 3 comes to mind, being localized as Trials of Mana. Just cool. Like, great. I love it.
Yeah, I love the Switch for like what people are putting on to that console. Like, it's now like basically my go-to, like when I'm not streaming or when I want to play games, is the Switch, because what games are on there now for obscure and like games we never got experience growing up.
Yeah, no, I really look forward. Is there any other upcoming stuff that you wanted to shout out excitement for?
I mean, the only things I'm really working on besides waiting for Moon and getting very excited about that is I'm working on Unlimited Saga, the one speedrun category, and then Animorphs. Any percent. Those are the two I'm working on right now. Other than that, not a whole lot.
Now, if people want to see you work on those, where should they be finding you?
Be just my Twitch channel. So as usual, Twitch pa_sama. That'd be the best place to go. I do post on Twitter, which is oh my goodness, lp. Pa_Sama, if I'm remembering correct. Sorry, my brain is just a little bit.
All of these links, folks, if you're listening and you need to find the links, they will be in the podcast description. So just, scroll down. You should be able to find all the links, both to Pa's information as well as the links to the runs that, specific runs that I watched in preparation for this interview. Pa, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed this. Actually, wait. I almost forgot. I wanted to ask you very briefly about your recommendation on whether or not to play a particular game. I'm a big fan of the PlayStation 1 versions of Lunar 1 and 2, and I noticed that you speedran the English translation patch of the Lunar Game Gear game. Would you recommend that as a casual experience?
Yes, it's very 90s for its time. I will warn you about that, but it's really good. And plus, I don't know when it's going to be released, but there is going to be an English patch for Walking School, the Sega Saturn version, which has way more content. So you can definitely play the Game Gear version. I highly recommend it. But yeah, when that Sega Saturn version comes out, I highly recommend playing that one.
Awesome. I'm actually I recently acquired one of those new optical drive emulators for Saturn, but I have not yet purchased a Saturn, which is its own debacle. But that is for me to tweet about. Thank you so much for your time and all of this wonderful information about these games.
No, thank you so much for letting me be on the podcast.
All right. Well, but if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I need one more thing from you, right?
Yeah, you need to do the rocket sound, I would channel my best, as I'm going to reference Tecmo Seek of the Stars. I'm going to reference my best giving the taco to the rocket to let it launch off into a floating island, and then it can explode sound.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing this. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Pa. Let's boost on out of here.